Disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism of this film. The starcast of the film will also give details about the supporting cast and production guys. If you want to know about this movie, you must watch this video. You will find all the details of this movie in this video. What is the story of this movie? If you like this video, then share it with your friends and subscribe our channel. Colombiana 2 in 2026 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Cattle Restrepo portrayed by Zoe Saldana on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview. The story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under a new identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWNN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking and large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Kalia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Key as conflict. The Silver Fang quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking Catalia, as she is once again drawn into a spiral of vengeance. The villagers rally around her as she becomes their guardian angel and protector, but Catalia realizes this fight isn't just about one village, it's about something far larger than. Silver Fang has ties with corrupt politicians, international drug trafficking, and even some of her old enemies who have resurfaced to hunt her down. New characters and allies. Catalia encounters a skilled hacker NCO who was once a part of an underground cyber group before being forced into hiding after a run-in with the syndicate. Together they work to expose the syndicate's activities and weaken its network. Nico brings in an additional level of danger but also emotional complexity as he begins to see Catalia as more than just a skilled assassin, and Catalia struggle between vulnerability and survival becomes a key narrative point. Rising tension as Catalia and Nico move deeper into dismantling the syndicate. They face betrayal, loss, and increasingly lethal confrontations. Kalia's dark past is constantly referenced, testing her resilience as she confronts her own violent tendencies. This is not just a battle against enemies but against her inner demons, particularly when the syndicate's head, a man known as El Alran, begins targeting innocent people close to her, forcing Catalia into a corner where no one is safe. Climactic showdown. The film's climax brings Catalia face to face with Al Alacran in an intense showdown at the syndicate's high-tech isolated compound deep in the jungle. Here Catalia has to fight not only to save herself and those she's come to care about but also to find some form of redemption. The fight is raw, unforgiving, and shows her full capabilities as she takes down the syndicate's most elite guards, battling for justice and closure. Ending. The film ends with Catalia once again alone but at peace, knowing she has avenged those who suffered at the hands of the Silver FW, and Nico returns to his underground network with a promise that he'll be there if she ever needs him. Catalia with scars both visible and hidden walks into the sunset, symbolizing her endless fight for justice in the price of survival. Overall tone: the sequel maintains the gritty, high-stakes action and intense emotional stakes of the original with a more in-depth exploration of Catalia's psyche. Colombiana 2 promises to deliver heart-pounding action while diving into questions of loyalty, vengeance and the cost of a life lived in shadows. Plot 4. Colombiana 2 2026. Colombiana 2 takes us back into the ruthless high-octane world of Catalia Restrepo, portrayed once again by Zoe Saldana, set several years after the events of the first movie. This sequel delves into themes of legacy, redemption and the relentless pull of a past riddled with violence. Act 1. The come before they storm. Since avenging her parents' deaths, Catalia has managed to stay under the radar, living quietly in the remote village of San Miguel, deep within the jungles of South America. Under an assumed identity, she sought peace, and the villagers view her as a mysterious but protective figure. Catalia has begun to soften, even building connections with some villagers, including a young girl, Camila, who looks up to her, but her tranquil life is shattered in a powerful cartel known as the T. Silver FWNN begins expanding its territory, headed by the ruthless and elusive leader known only as Elena Scorpion. The syndicate engages in drug trafficking, arms dealing, in human exploitation. San Miguel is targeted due to its strategic location for trafficking routes, and the cartel wastes no time making its presence known through violence and terror. Act 2. Cat Alia resurfaces when Silver Fawn enforcers assault San Miguel. Catalia is forced to reveal her skills defending the villagers with lethal precision. Witnessing her unmatched ferocity there, cartel quickly realizes that Catalia is no ordinary resident. Her actions gain notoriety, and El Alan becomes intrigued by rumors of La Tigresa, the Tigress, defend in a small village. During one skirmish, Catalia meets Nico, a former hacker from a European activist network footprint, and offers to help her in exchange for protection. Though hesitant to work with anyone, Catalia recognizes NCO skills and agrees, seeing an opportunity to disrupt the cartel on a larger scale. Act 3. The fight for justice and survival. With Nico's help, Catalia begins targeting the cargo's digital infiltration. She discovers the compound's weaknesses and embarks on a deadly mission, navigating treacherous terrain and fending off the cartel's relentless mercenaries. Nico provides remote support but is eventually captured, forcing Catalia to accelerate her plan to rescue him and confront Alan directly inside the compound. Catalia encounters a labyrinth of traps and ruthless guards. With her experience and brutal efficiency, she eliminates them one by one, her skills in combat and survival proving unmatched. Finally, she faces El Alacran, who is revealed to be a former military strategist with a personal vendetta against anyone who challenges his empire. Act 5. The final showdown. In a heart-pounding confrontation, Catalia and El Alacran engage in a brutal fight. Despite his strength and cunning, he is no match for Catal's agility and resolve. After a relentless battle, Catalia defeats El Alacran, avenging Camila's death and liberating San Miguel and the surrounding communities from the cartel's control. She frees Nico, though injured, vows to continue using his skills to expose criminal organizations and fight for justice. Catalia realizes that while she may never escape her violent past, she can at least use her skills to protect the innocent. Epilogue: A new legacy. The final scenes show Catalia leaving San Miguel. Now a folk hero among the villagers, she walks away from her temporary home with a sense of purpose, determined to confront other syndicates and criminals that prey on the defenseless. Nico, now a trusted ally, goes underground but promises to stay in touch, hinting at a network of allies who share her mission. Catalia is once again on her own but has evolved from a lone avenger into a beacon of resistance against injustice, embarking on a journey that might finally bring her peace if only she can survive the path ahead. Production background: Colombiana 2225 builds upon the cult status of the original Colombiana 2011, a film that combined pool-pounding action with a deeply personal revenge plot, directed by Olivia Megaton and written by Luc Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. The first film brought viewers into the dangerous world of Catalia Restrepo, a fierce assassin driven by vengeance for her parents' murders. Over the years, the film has gained a dedicated fan base, fueling demand for a sequel that would delve further into Calia's complex character and offer closure, or perhaps a new beginning for her story. Director: The reins of Colombiana 2 have been taken up by filmmaker David Leitch. For his work on action-packed films like John Wick, Atomic Blonde and Hobbs, and shot his flair for meticulously choreographed action sequences combined with narrative depth and character exploration makes him a fitting choice to take Calia's journey to new levels. Production studio and writers: produced by Europa Corp and Sony Pictures. The script has been penned by emerging screenwriters known for their work in gritty dramas focusing on a narrative that emphasizes character development alongside high-stakes action. With a reputed director and dedicated writing team, Colombiana 2 promises to be a worthy successor with strong character focus in cinematic appeal. Encore 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 underscore 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 plot summary. In Colombiana 2, Catalia Rio, played once again by Zoe Saldana, has attempted to leave her violent past behind, seeking solace and a quiet life in the secluded South-American village of San Miguel. However, peace is fleeting when a ruthless cartel known as the Silver FWNN, led by the enigmatic El Alan Na Scorpion, encroaches upon her new home. They unleash terror on the villagers, capturing and killing innocents and forcing Catalia back into action. Catalia, joined by a skilled hacker named Neek, who shares his own vendetta against the cartel, sets out on a path to destroy the syndicate. NCO becomes her tech-savvy ally, helping her disrupt the cartel's network from the inside. Together they attempt to bring down the powerful criminal empire, facing betrayal, violence, and a fight for survival. The climax sees Catalia confronting El Alacran in his high-security jungle compound, leading to an intense showdown that tests both her physical prowess and emotional resilience. Encore 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 underscore encore 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 Encore, encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, encore, encore underscore encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, encore. Encore casting and performances. Zoe S.A. reprises her role as Catalia, bringing a depth of experience in portraying both physical action and emotional vulnerability. Sauce portrayal is expected to delve into the toll of a life spent in shadows, showcasing a blend of fierce determination and subtle moments of inner encore themes in tone. Colombiana 2 is not just an action movie, it carries underlying themes of redemption, inner peace, and the price of vengeance. The film carefully deposes Kalia's violence. Skill deals with her longing for a more peaceful existence, giving audiences a deeper look into the toll that constant combat and isolation have taken on her psyche. One redemption and legacy. The movie dives into Kala's emotional journey as she grapples with the effects of her vengeance-driven life. Her bond with the villagers, particularly a young girl named Camila, gives her a glimpse into what life could be beyond violence, while her alliance with Nico introduces trust into her world of calculated caution. 2 Justice versus revenge. In this sequel, Kia fight transcends personal vendetta and enters the realm of social justice as she strives to protect her new community. The shift offers a refreshing complexity to her character, making her a hero not just for herself, but for others. 3 Sacrifice and survival. The narrative unflinchingly shows the stakes and sacrifices involved, especially when innocent lives are caught in the crossfire. These themes add a sense of realism, grounding the film and making it resonate with audiences beyond the thrill of action. Underscore encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Underscore, underscore, underscore. Underscore, underscore, encore, underscore. Encore, underscore, underscore, underscore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 underscore. Encore, encore. Encore, encore. Action sequences and cinematography under David Leitch's direction. The action choreography in Colombiana 2 is expected to be visceral and precise, blending hand-to-hand combat with sleek tactical maneuvers. The film makes ample use of the South American jungle setting, utilizing lush, dense environments and hidden compounds to create suspense. The contrast between Catalia guerrilla-style attacks and the cartel's high-tech security fortifies the film's central conflict and showcases her tactical ingenuity. The cinematography is visually striking, with warm, shadowy tones that reflect the mystery of the jungle setting in the tension-laden atmosphere. High-energy sequences, including a climactic showdown in the cartel's compound, are likely to be fan favorites, highlighting Kalia's growth as both a tactician and a fighter. Underscore encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Stability for audiences familiar with action tropes. Parts of the plot, such as Catalia seeking redemption or a climactic battle against the cartel leader, may feel somewhat formulaic to dark tone. The movie's unrelenting tone of violence and tension may be off-putting for viewers looking for lighter action fare. Underscore encore, 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 encore. Encore, 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 encore. Encore sar. Encore. Underscore encore. Encore conclusion Colombian at 2 is positioned to be a thrilling thoughtful successor to the original delivering on both action and character depth. The movie's darker themes, complex characters, and polished action sequences make it a promising film that respects and expands upon its predecessor, honoring the legacy of Catalia Restrepo while offering something fresh and intense with a strong creative team, a compelling plot, and stellar performances. Colombiana 2 is likely to captivate fans of the original while earning new admirers for its unapologetic exploration of vengeance, justice and survival. Colombiana 2 in 202.25 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Let's discuss previous parts. Colombiana is a 2011 French-English language action thriller film kitten and produced by Luc Besson and directed by Olivier Megaton. The film stars Zoe Saldana, supporting roles by Michael Vaughn, Cliff Curtis, Lenny James, Callum Blue in Jordi Mula. The film is about Catalia, a 9-year-old girl in Colombia whose family is killed by a drug lord 15 years later. A grown Catalia seeks her revenge. The film had a generally unfavorable reception from critics, but Sona's performance and action sequences were praised. It grossed $63.40 million against a $40 million production tie-in budget. Plot: in 1992 in Bogota, Colombia, drug baron Don Lee Sanval sends his enforcer Marco and a gang of armed men to kill his gang member Fabio Restrepo and his family because Fabio has defied him by trying to leave his prolific drug crime activity behind. Fabio gives his 9-year-old daughter Catalia a smart media computer memory card loaded with information on Don Lee's business and tells her it's her passport. He also gives her the address of her uncle Elio in Chicago, Illinois, who will take care of her. Finally he leaves her with her mother's Catalia orchid necklace after Fabio and his wife Alicia are gunned down. Catalia escapes and seeks asylum at the U.S. Embassy. She is granted passage to the United States after handing over the memory card to embassy staff, although American officials attempt to transfer her into the foster care system. Catalia ATT tracks down her uncle in Chicago and asks him to train her as a killer. 15 years later in 2007 a grown Catalia has become an accomplished assassin. Emilio serves as the lives of his own family, but she admits that she does not care about the risk to his family while she is spending the night with her American boyfriend Danny Delaney. He takes a photo of her sleeping and then shows it to a friend who then decides to run a background check on Catalia, which alerts the FBI. Meanwhile, FBI agent James Ross is working to identify the killer behind more than 20 unsolved murders, all of which have Catalia orchids left behind. He gets a pin on Calia's photo from the background check and orders her arrest. But Catalia escapes and reaches out to revenge Catalia, having planted her specially trained attack dogs in his escape vehicle, orders them to eat day alive. Danny is interrogated by Ross. Catalia calls him from a pay phone. They talk briefly before Ross grabs Danny's phone, but Catalia hangs up, leaving town. On a bus cast Zoe Saldana as Catal, contract killer who seeks revenge when her drug-dealing father and mother are murdered by their criminal associates. Jordi Mola as Marco, Don, main enforcer and the man who executed Kalia's parents while she watched Lenny James's Ross FBI special. Agent tasked with investigating Kalia assassinations. Amanda Stenberg as 10-year-old Catalia Callum Blue as Richard, CIA agent who arranged Don Lee relocation in cooperation. Cynthia Adai Robinson as Alicia Kia's mother who is killed along with her husband Jesse Gaz. Fabio K's father and a drug business partner of Don Lu who was ordered killed when he tried to quit the criminal life. Ophelia Medina as Mama. Emilio's mother Angel Jica as Pepe. Emilio's father Sam Douglas as Willie. Ward Graham McTavish as head U.S. Marshal. Warren Max Martini as Agent Robert Williams. Bonnet say Don Luis a Colombian drug lord who ordered the killing of Kalia's family. Then K deal with the CIA. Michael Vaugh is Danny Dylan Kalia boyfriend and artist. He knows Catalia as Jennifer Cliff Curtis as Elio Restrepo K's uncle and Prof killer who raises and trains her after her parents were killed. Production. The script for Colombiana was based on Matilda, which was originally written by Luc Besson as a sequel to L.A. and The Professional after a disagreement with the Gaunt Film Company on how to proceed with the film. Besson and director Olivier Megaton reworked the script into a standalone film. Filming began in August 2010 in locations including Chicago, New Orleans, Mexico, and France. The film was produced by Besson's Europa Corp company and the script was written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. David Martin Jones in an essay written for Senses of Cinema stated that the film was likely to have been perceived by audiences to be an American Hollywood wood production, noting that aping the look of a Hollywood genre film with a non-us twist had been used in previous European films. Reception. Critical response on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. 28% of 107 critics' reviews are positive with an average rating of 4.9 SL10. The website's consensus reads: Zoe Saldana has the chops, but she's taken out by erratic and sloppy filmmaking. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 45 out of 100 based on 22 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Christy Lamere of the Associated Press reviewed Colombiana, writing that the director of Lane, Nikita and the Fifth Element serves as co-writer and producer here, but this is very much a spin-off of his brand, a continuation of the kind of stereotype and gravity defying characters he's made his name on. Colombiana feels more hammy and muscular though, but knowingly so, and that's what makes it solid. Late summer escapist fun. Betsy Shy of the Los Angeles Times wrote this B-movie blast of bloody blam blam is the latest chapter in the Luc Besson book of badly bruised lovelies who are better not crossed. What he began in 1990 with Nikita followed with LW in 94 and 97's The Fifth Element, the last written with Robert Mark Kamen, who co-wrote Colombiana with Besson. He refines in Colombiana. Claudia P.G. of USA Today wrote, "This is a showy fly of an action film. Sun doesn't get much of a chance to emote, but her action skills blossom." Jordan Miner of The Hollywood Reporter said that there are guilty pleasures to be had in this frenzy be starring Zoe S.A., who gives an acrobatic performance that makes the overcooked material watchable. Controversy. A non-profit group called Poor Colombia criticized the film, saying that it stereotyped Colombia in a negative way. Carlos is president of Poor Columbia claimed that the film is proof of a total lack of creativity in Hollywood. When asked about the situation in an interview, SA said, "Shame on them. I don't know. I wish I knew how to address stupid, unintelligent comments, but I don't. I'm not a stupid person." The following year, in an essay published in Senses of Cinema, David Martin Jones focused on a different aspect of the South American character, believing that the film provided a different perspective concerning immigration and international wealth inequality. He notes that a character from the global South wreak havoc on the wealthy and corrupt in the global North, offering a different perspective than is usually seen in a Hollywood blockbuster. Box office. Colombiana grossed $36.7 million domestically, United States and Canada, and $26.80 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $63.50 million against a budget of $40 million. It opened at number 2 in the first of its 3 consecutive weeks in the top 10 at the domestic box office, sequel at the 2015 See Europe, when the production house Europa Corp announced upcoming films. It mentioned that Colombiana 2 was in 2011. A part of me wants to agree with him, but another part wants to blame the lack of quality of Hollywood's action blockbusters for this regrettable situation, and the latter part is talking louder to my conscious brain. I don't really care about things blowing up all over my screen if there's no John Lon walking through the wreckage to be there on time to pick up Holly and the kids. I had high hopes that Colombiana wouldn't buy into cheap thrills after seeing the trailer. I always fancy female action movies, as they are a nice change of pace from the male angst-ridden bullet fests I usually watch. Despite being technically sound, Colombiana did not live up to my expectations at all. Seeing who was behind it now, I wonder why I got my hopes up in the first place. Colombia is an awful place to be a criminal in. Olivier Megaton's movie Working in Bad as drug market is like working public function in the US. You're more likely to be on somebody IES payroll than to become Scarface. It's a little racist, but I can deal with that. Catalia Rio Salana learns this the hard way when her parents are murdered by the henchmen of Don Levy Bonnet's back when she was a child. That moment defined Cal's trail of vaguely corrupt and generic CIA agent Callum Blue, and far too many scenes of her making out with her hot painter hump buddy Michael Vall. Alias. In reality, everything that doesn't directly revolve around action is probably best ignored, but things always look darkest just before the dawn, right? And I'll say it one more time, lucky for you right as you're about to give up hope. Colombiana gets rat again, and we're talking rocket launchers, hand grenades, and a toe fight. Rat, there isn't much to think about too seriously in Colombiana. It's a simplistic look at culture trauma and a story full of caricatures and stereotypes at its best. However, the film is entertaining eye candy, and that's enough for me tonight. There are shark fights, intricate assassinations, lots of things to blow up, and an assortment of interchangeable goons with no larger purpose in life than to become cannon fodder for a hot killer in a bodysuit. Sure, it's cheesy and melodramatic, but what the hell, it's also a good time. I can't help but think that without S's presence, Colombian would never grace the multiplexes. This is a kind of action movie that rarely gets a wide theatrical release anymore, unless it happens to be directed by Sylvester Stallone and star a bunch of 80s action icons. Usually films of this nature are Relegated to the direct-to-video market. And enjoyed only by the hardcore among us who actively seek out genre features. This is the kind of action I grew up on. It's a little bit sexy, a little bit silly. And to be sure there are some moments of blustery overacting in poorly executed American accents, but all in all Colombiana isn't bad. I think it is also worth noting that a man with the surname Megaton is responsible for directing Colombiana. It takes a certain level of balls to change your name from Olivier Fontana to Olivier Megaton. How do you explain that? One to your parents, but that's exactly the type of personality, one full of cockiness and bravado, that I want in charge of my action movies. Well played, Megaton. Well played. The conveyor belt of producer Luc Besson's action movie factory delivers at least one mindless shum upro year, occasionally the yield of dull titles such as From Paris with Love is broken up by something as entertaining is taken, but not often. Colombiana exists as a mid-range action product with violence to spare, reasonable star power, of momentum, even more violence, and heaps of sex appeal, all tempered for mass consumption by a PG-13 rating. CR written by Besson and Robert Mark Kamen. The movie was directed by Olivier Megaton, Transporter 31 of Besson clan, who has yet to break out the way Pierre Morel District 13 has here. Megaton rushes through a story that deserves comparisons to Best Ona Professional after witnessing the murder of her mother and Colombian drug lord hitman father at the hands of competitor Don Luis Biben and his goon Marco Jordi. Mullah. 9-year-old Catalia Amanda Stenberg escapes in a mediocre parkour chase sequence on the rooftops of Bogota. She makes her way to Chicago and takes refuge with her uncle emo Cliff Curtis, a gangster who values family. She insists on getting revenge in that Emilo train her to be a killer, and he agrees on the condition that she goes to school. Cut to 15 years later, by which this time Catalia, now played by Avatar star Zoe Saldana, has accumulated a hit list of 20 or more kills, all very bad people, and all meant to draw out Don Lu, who has since gone into hiding under CIA protection, a normal wife with her casual boyfriend Danny Michael Vaugh, who until recently she has used for sex never seemed feasible, but suddenly Danny wants to talk, and Catalia begins to feel something beneath her cold exterior. Oh. Meanwhile, while flavorless FBI Special Agent Ross Lenny James is hot on his suspect's trail, but refuses to believe the killer is a woman, because no woman could ever do what this killer has done. Clearly Agent Ross hasn't seen Bessa's laugh, Nikita, or The Fifth Element, but he's got to find the killer, because that's what FBI agents do. So he asks the press to distribute her signature, a Katia orchid drawn on each victim's chest in black lipstick. When Don leaves sees this, he sends out his thugs to search for Catalia, putting her few dear associates and family members in harm's way. Saldana makes a welcome replacement for Besson's other action heroes, the likes of Jason Statham and gentle actors whose scowls are interrupted only by bursts of anger. She's nimble, infiltrating complex security with the SLLYY daring of Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, while she can also unleash hell worthy of Schwarzenegger in the finale's Commando style shootout. But rather than question the morality of her cold-blooded killer, Megaton orders SAA to shed a few tears and morally redeems her character through emotion. She is after all a woman, and therefore Subject to movie stereotypes such as sentimentality, but Besson did not choose a female protagonist solely to show a sensitive side despite a number of sappy scenes involving Kia's family and boyfriend. The movie Sexy Chick with Guns concept reaches its height when the protagonist escapes an FBI raid with little more than her undergarments and a massive assassin's rifle, the only obvious cliché missing from their overcooked Colombiana is an android Renus female villainess to rival SA in the 1980s. Such a role would have been played by Bridget Neen, though he avoids this bit of formula. There aren't too many other cliché. Megaton, a ridiculous self-appointed moniker, doesn't employ action scenes, adopt that familiar over-edited shaky cam style that has spread like a disease through the majority of today's action movies. End cuts have a man on fire strobe effect that might cause an epileptic seizure. Everything that you expect to happen does, but the result is certainly more watchable than the majority of best and produced actioners, and will no doubt provide some mild diversion for action junkies. Colombiana is a movie that is best enjoyed if you prepare yourself for the unbelievable. It's hard not to start here when within the first 10 minutes of you notice that there's room for improvement. There are a few scenes where you can truly become immersed by the action and cinematography in front of you and how the movie progressed drays. And there are times when this movie hints at having a level of wit and intelligence that captures your attention in such a way that the movie truly picks up and hints at better things to come. Will follow along with Katala as she scales buildings, ventilation systems, creeps down hallways in a sexy and fine fashion that delivers a cool mix of DC's Catwoman and Metal Gear's Solid Snake. Her intelligence in the art of espionage and her tactics really add to a level of entertainment with the entire movie as you see her systematically and intelligently take on or assassinating individual in the most ludicrously guarded places. You'll definitely have a few moments that make you sit on the edge of your seat just to find out how she actually pulls off these stunts and how she eventually makes a mistake. So Sonnet channels her best Angelina Jolie in this movie. Seriously, she has the effeminate, feline and seductive down to a science and produces a performance for a character that's an amalgamation of Lorak, Croft, Evelyn, Salt and Fox. But you can't help but feel that the creators oversex this movie to compensate with the weak writing. Thankfully that is in fact the case, as her sex appeal reaches new heights in this movie while tiptoeing around any actual revelation of nudity. The film still delivers plenty of the sexiness that voyeurs will still have their rewind moments and post on the internet what minute mark to tune in for other perverts. Overall the movie is a mindless platform to introduce and test Zoe Saldana as a draw and leading woman. She's definitely shows that she's capable of both despite the inherent weaknesses throughout the film without much fault of her own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing her continue to establish herself as a leading woman in Sex Symbol. The movie had me upset at the thought that I watched this in the theater and would recommend that others instead wait for a home release, but signing her victims with a lipstick drawing of her floral namesake, solidly produced if slightly generic English language pick should do mid-range biz in France, where it bowed July 27 in OK number stat side, where it goes out August 26 rather than adopting a tired flashback heavy approach. Megaton and Screenwriters Besson and Regular. Collaborator Robert Mark came and let Kalia childhood trauma play out up front. In an audacious half-hour prologue said. In 1992 budget still a little girl Catalia. Amanda Stenberg witnesses the assassination of her next often by crime boss Don Luis B. Bonnets and his vicious right-hand man Marco Giordiola. Catalia decides she wants to become a killer when she grows up so she can properly exact revenge on Luis Marco and their gang 15 years later played by SAA. She's a pretty impressive contract killer working for her Chicago-based uncle a mellow Cliff Curtis. The first assignment odds get to see her in isn't elaborately staged hit inside a prison. In an intricately staged and executed 10-minute plus set piece that reps one of the picks to action highlights. The second is a mano-mano fight in a Henda bathroom, man intentionally messy a sequence that injects a welcome dose of reality and real danger into the proceedings, something lacking in the film's more bombastic and generic shootouts and explosions. Much of the viewer's investment will depend on his or her concern for Kia's plight, and this is where Saw's contribution is key. Despite being a ruthless killer with a killer bob and a predilection for skimpy tight fitting apparel, costume designer Olivier Barat seems to have taken a K from the Avatar THS motion capture bodysuit. She not only exudes sexiness but also generates a certain amount of sympathy. Dawn's handful of scenes with her artist BF Michael Vaugh, who has no clue what she does for a living, help humanize the otherwise solitary killing machine in 310 confrontations in a schoolyard and a library with a mellow and during a home visit with the FBI agent on her tail. Lenny James nicely Jew Tuss plotting and characterization between action setups like all action picks from Bessa's Europa Corp including Helmer Megatons. The Transporter 3 Colombiana is Saley assembled locations including Mexico, There Us and France, and Patrick Duran production design are expertly showcased in Roma. Laura suit dappled widescreen lensing, editing and score are unobtrusive. The work of stunt coordinator Michelle Julian Tack in the Transporter films and fight choreographer Alan Figlar. The Bourne Identity. Largo Winch is pro but has a greatest hits feel rather than its own identity. Remember, you read it here first. To star is Bourne. Amanda Stenberg steals the entire film, which isn't bad considering she's only 10 years old and is on screen for only the opening 15 minutes or so. She plays the lead, Catalia, who is a 99-year-old witnesses her parents' murders by Marco Giordi Moa, evil henchman of evil drug lord Don Luis B. Bonds. But Mom and Pop had it coming anyway, because every Colombian in this film is a drug dealer and slash or killer and slash or gangster of some kind. Not only does Amanda display genuine terror, I wonder how director Olivier Megaton got her to do that. Threatened to put a puppy in a blender. You sees his cute little baby puppy doggy and let you see how I put in the how you say blender, but she's handy with a hunting knife too, putting her mark on Marco before going on a rooftop parkour run for her life, dodging bullets, a motorbike, a parkour pursuer, and various SUVs. It's all breathtaking stuff that makes you read the end crawl really carefully to see if any little girls were harmed in the making of this movie. Catalia then makes her way to the U.S. Embassy, and a nice touch, this pukes up a micro SD card, a parting gift from Daddy, which contains some kind of Secret information that gets her instant citizenship and is flown to the States. She then dodges her handler and makes her way to Chicago and Uncle Alo Cliff Curtis, who being Colombian is also some kind of gangster. We know this because we're introduced to him beating some guy to a pulp in a container back in the safe and loving arms of family. Catalia decides she wants to be a professional killer and waste everyone who had anything to do with the deaths of her parents. That'll be all of Colombia then. But first she has to go school, and after bribing the principal to overlook Kalia's late start and presumed missing grades, Uncle Lello convinces her education is the best way by pulling a gun in broad daylight and shooting a passing car full of holes and causing it to crash. Since nobody witness is anything, he is able to calmly put it away and explain that whilst anyone can do that and presumably not get caught, ever the 3RS will give her a better a shot in life. So far so brilliant, but then we fast forward 15 years and get Zoe Saldana, whose vehicle this is. It's not that MSAA doesn't look good, especially after her appearance at the Avatar press conference in Berlin, where she appeared to be promoting anorexia as a fashion statement. Nor is it her athleticism, but in what is a standard Luc Besson Olivier Megaton crazy name Crazy Guy mayhem movie she is called upon to act. It's not only out of place, but her gamut runs all the way from A to not quite B. Instead of a 95-minute way stem up, we also get a completely unconvincing subplot love affair involving her and artist Danny Delaney, Michael Vaugh. And is it just me, or do all his paintings feature penises in some shape or form? He knows nothing about her, and certainly not that she's a serial killer with 22, not just to her credit only Colombians, of course, because they all have it coming on behalf of Uncle A. Mello. This results in the film being at least quarter of an hour longer than it needs in breaking the action when it needs to keep roaring. Liam and didn't need any kind of emotional claptrap intake in So Why Here. So what if Catalia is tortured, damaged, etc.? Do we care? No. This is essentially a cartoon film with live actors. Of course, Cal is really after Marco and Don Luis, them having been conveniently located to the US by the CIA, ostensibly because Don Lu is in informant but allowed to carry on being major drug dealers. Just work with me here, okay? Like I say, this is a cartoon at heart, so to draw him out she works her way through his people, drawing a large orchid on the bodies of her victims. It looks like 5 penises joined up, by the way, replicating a necklace he gave to her father before ordering him wasted, and which he gave to her before being wasted. Don Lees knows what that means. The orchid that is not the penises. Meantime, FBI agent James Ross Lenny James is on Kalia's tail for earlier smuggling herself into a high-security jail and taking out a really nasty piece of Colombian work thanks to a helpful orchid recognizing clean in an audible groan-inducing moment, and that penis drawing artist guy of hers. The cops and feds get a solid lead on her. QA Leonic shoot out and chase through her apartment block, from which she escapes. Not that Donla hasn't been busy either. He's taken out Uncle Amello and the latter's mother. This gives Miss S.A. another chance to act, which she seizes with both hands and tosses out the window. I'm sorry, she can't. She really can't do it in the hands of AAL actress such as Angelina Jolie. Waiting for Anda Stenberg to have gone rough puberty. These extra scenes would have worked and added some depth To the character but SA can't carry it. Just paint her blue and have done with it. Fair Chris a Catalia now goes on her merry way, finally tracking down Don Louise via threatening Agent Ross, who leads her to the CIA handler who, prompted by a bullet through the window, spills Don Lee's whereabouts. The rest of this by the numbers going through the motions film is her taking out Don Lee hired help who, unlike her, are not bullet or bomb-proof until it's time to deal with Marco, using mostly a hand towel, and finally done Louise using 2 dogs that have been trained to eat on command. Pretty cool. But sadly we don't get to see it. It's not that Colombiana is bad, but nor is it particularly interesting. It's all rather root-like and overtired and bored hooker, giving yet another hand job, nobody apart from the amazing Amanda Stenberg and those technicians, extras and stunt men hoping to get their next gig, is really giving of their best in Zoe Saldana, despite her clearly visible efforts and exertions and innate hotness, is out of her depth, handicapped by her limited acting ability in a script that unfairly calls on her to show some. Colombiana 2 in 2026 has not been officially announced or confirmed by the original film's producers or studios. Colombiana 2225 brings back the fierce Catalia Restrepo portrayed by Zoe Saldana on another journey of vengeance and justice following the events of the first film, where Catalia took down the men responsible for her parents' deaths. She now faces an even more dangerous challenge, a deadly syndicate that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. Plot overview: the story begins with Catalia trying to lead a quieter life, having partially escaped the violent shadows of her past. She's found a small semblance of peace, living under an identity in a remote village in South America. However, rumors of a powerful crime syndicate known as the Silver FWNN begin spreading. This syndicate, notorious for trafficking in large-scale corruption, has a reputation for wiping out entire communities that resist them. When the Silver Fang arrives in Kalia's village, its enforcers inadvertently bring her back into a world she was hoping to leave behind. Kalia's conflict: the Silver Fang quickly realizes they've made a grave mistake in provoking blatantly exaggerated that you can't help but feel borderline insulted by the writers for even conceiving the idea, let alone thinking that an audience will accept any unrealistic scenarios just for the purpose of progressing the story. Let me try to better explain. You know those moments when you watch a movie and you just a character do something so stupidly counterproductive to their own survival that you just rest your head in your hand until it's over. That's pretty much sums up the entirety of the opening scene of Colombiana. It's one thing to manufacture the progression of the story, but it's another thing to use and write characters as tools while they defy basic logic and common sense. For this purpose, I don't like the use of dumb down characters just for the sake of story progression, and I think it's a piss poor way and excuse to progress the story of a movie. Colombiana does have some redeeming qualities, as there were a few times I would have believed that I was watching a movie created by a young and lesser experienced Michael Bay, with all the flash eye candy and explosions to complement the movie in the usual Bay way. Colombiana tries to mimic the action of some of the best revenge movies of our time, and at times actually pulls this off pretty well, but there are times when you notice that there's room for improvement. There are a few scenes where You can truly become immersed by the action and cinematography in front of you and how the movie progressed drays. And there are times when this movie hints at having a level of wit and intelligence that captures your attention in such a way that the movie truly picks up and hints at better things to come. Follow along with Catalia as she scales buildings' ventilation systems, creeps down hallways in a sexy and fine fashion that delivers a cool mix of DC's Catwoman and Metal Gear's Solid Snake. Her intelligence in the art of espionage and her tactics really add to a level of entertainment with the entire movie as you see her systematically and intelligently take on or assassinating individual in the most ludicrously guarded places. You'll definitely have a few moments that make you sit on the edge of your seat just to find out how she actually pulls off these stunts and how she eventually makes a mistake so Sonnet channels her best Angelina Jolie in this movie. Seriously, she has the effeminate, feline and seductive down to a science and produces a performance for a character that's an amalgamation of Lara Croft, Evelyn Salt and Fox, but you can't help but feel that the creators oversexed this movie to compensate with the weak writing. Thankfully that is in fact the case, as her sex appeal reaches new heights in this movie while tiptoeing around any actual revelation of nudity. The film still delivers plenty of the sexiness that voyeurs will still have their rewind moments and post on the internet what minute mark to tune in for other perverts. Overall the movie is a mindless platform to introduce and test Zoe Saldana as a draw and leading woman. She's definitely shows that she's capable of both despite the inherent weaknesses throughout the film without much fault of her own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing her continue to establish herself as a leading woman in sex symbol. The movie had me upset at the thought that I watched this in the theater and would recommend that others instead wait for a home release, but signing her victims with a lipstick drawing of her floral namesake, solidly produced if slightly generic English language pick, should do mid-range biz in France where it bowed July 27th in OK number stat side where it goes out August 26th rather than adopting a tired flashback heavy approach. Megaton and screenwriters Besson and regular collaborator Robert Mark came and let Kalia childhood trauma play out up front in an audacious half-hour prologue. Said in 1992 budget, still a little girl Catalia Amanda Stenberg witnesses the assassination of her next, often by crime boss Don Luis B. Bonnets and his vicious right-hand man Marco Jordi Ola. Catalia decides she wants to become a killer when she grows up so she can properly exact revenge on Luis Marco and their gang. 15 years later, played by SAA, she's a pretty impressive contract killer working for her Chicago-based uncle, a mellow Cliff Curtis. The first assignment odds get to see her in isn't elaborately staged hit inside a prison in an intricately staged and executed 10-minute plus set piece that reps one of the picks to action highlights. The second is a mano-mano fight in a Henda bathroom, man intentionally messy a sequence that injects a welcome dose of reality and real danger into the proceedings, something lacking in the film's more bombastic and generic shootouts and explosions. Much of the viewer's investment will depend on his or her concern for Kia's plight, and this is where Saw's contribution is key. Despite being a ruthless killer with a killer bob and a predilection for skimpy tight fitting apparel, costume designer Olivier Barrat seems to have taken a K from the Avatar THS motion capture bodysuit. She not only exudes sexiness but also generates a certain amount of sympathy. Dawn's handful of scenes with her artist BF Michael Vaugh, who has no clue what she does for a living, help humanize the otherwise solitary killing machine in 310. Confrontations in a schoolyard and a library with a mellow and during a home visit with the FBI agent on her tail. Lenny James nicely Tuss plotting and characterization between action setups like all action picks from Bessa's Europa Corp including Helmer Megatons. The Transporter 3 Colombiana is Saley assembled locations including Mexico, There Us and France, and Patrick Duran. Production design are expertly showcased in Roma. Laura suit dappled widescreen lensing, editing and score are unobtrusive. The work of stunt coordinator Michelle Julian Tack in the Transporter films and fight choreographer Alan Figlar. The Bourne Identity. Largo Winch is pro but has a greatest hits feel rather than its own identity. Remember, you read it here first. To star is Bourne. Amanda Stenberg steals the entire film, which isn't bad considering she's only 10 years old and is on screen for only the opening 15 minutes or so. She plays the lead, Kat Alia, who is a 99-year-old witnesses her parents' murders by Marco Jordi Moa, evil henchman of evil drug lord Don Luis B. Bonds. But Mom and Pop had it coming anyway, because every Colombian in this film is a drug dealer and slash or killer and slash or gangster of some kind. Not only does Amanda display genuine terror, I wonder how director Olivier Megaton got her to do that. Threatened to put a puppy in a blender. You sees his cute little baby puppy doggy and let you see how I put in the how you say blender, but she's handy with a hunting knife too, putting her mark on Marco before going on a rooftop parkour run for her life, dodging bullets, a motorbike, a parkour pursuer, and various SUVs. It's all breathtaking stuff.